Keisuke and his wife Taki lived a happy life with their daughter Mai. They cooked together, went on trips, and spent time in the garden. Every day felt peaceful and full of joy. But one evening, everything changed. On their way home, Keisuke was in a car accident, and Taki lost her life. From that moment, their world fell apart. 10 years passed. Keisuke's life had grown dull and lonely. He still missed his wife deeply and struggled to move on. Mai, now an adult, stayed home without work, and their house had become messy and quiet. At his job, Keisuke lost focus and energy, and his co-workers noticed. A woman named Maria replaced him in his position. People at work even called him a zombie, because he looked so lifeless and tired. One evening, when Keisuke returned home, he saw a little girl standing at his door, pressing the doorbell again and again. When he opened it, she stepped inside and said she was home. Then she calmly told him she was Najima Taki, his wife who had died 10 years ago. She went straight to Mai's room and claimed she had been reborn as a young girl. Naturally, Keisuke and Mai did not believe her. He freezes at the doorway as a child calls herself his wife. This is if my wife becomes an elementary school student. Later, Keisuke asked the girl her name, and she said it was Marika, though she continued to insist she was Taki. She scolded him for letting his life fall apart and reminded him of Taki's favorite dish. The next day, Marika returned. Even though the door was locked, she knew where the spare key was hidden. She let herself in and looked through the family photo album, as if she belonged there. At work, during his break, Keisuke received a call from Marika asking to meet at their usual spot. The phrase startled him because Taki used to say the same thing. On his way home, he remembered how Taki once waited for him at the park. When he arrived, Marika was standing there, waiting in the same place and in the same way. She told Keisuke she wanted to buy a phone so they could stay in touch. Mai, who happened to be there too, was still unsure about her. She worried about the girl and told her friends about the strange situation. Mai refused to believe that her mother had been reborn. But before long, Marika appeared again and approached her directly. Marika asked Mai how she was doing, but Mai, feeling uncomfortable, told her to leave them alone. The next day, Marika went to see Keisuke at his office cafeteria. She was upset, disappointed by how his life had turned out. She encouraged him to stop living in sadness and move forward. Her words struck him deeply, and for the first time in years, Keisuke felt something change inside him. He began to find energy again. At work, he started helping Maria with enthusiasm, searching through files and ingredients for their project. While doing so, he remembered the past, when he used to visit Taki at her workplace. Back then, he spent hours tasting her food and recording her recipes, determined to help her create something special, no matter how tired he was. The next morning, the little girl arrived early at Keisuke's house. Keisuke told her to go home since he was expecting visitors, friends of his late wife, Taki, who were coming to remember her. The girl, however, reminded him to welcome them properly and suggested cleaning the house. She pointed out the messy rooms and the weeds growing in the yard. Then, without hesitation, she started cooking food for the guests. As Keisuke watched her move around the kitchen, he couldn't stop thinking of Taki and how she used to cook for him in the same way. Mai, on the other hand, felt uneasy seeing the girl in the kitchen with her father. She told her to stop cooking and leave. Mai didn't want anyone touching her mother's belongings, and she refused to believe that her mother could have been reborn. The thought only made her miss her mother more. That evening, Taki's relatives arrived, and everyone gathered at the house. The little girl quietly listened from the hallway as they talked. During the conversation, Keisuke told them that this would be their last gathering there, because he planned to sell the house. He explained that it wasn't about money. The house simply held too many memories. With only him and Mai left, it felt too big, too full of the past. After the guests left, the little girl approached Keisuke while he made coffee. She asked why he wanted to sell the house. Keisuke said he was tired of living surrounded by sadness. He wanted to move forward for Mai's sake, to stop clinging to memories that kept him stuck. He needed to accept that Taki was gone. As he stirred the coffee, made the same way Taki once taught him, he began to open up. He said his life had felt empty since her death. The girl tried to lift his spirits, telling him not to waste his life in sorrow. But Keisuke, still burdened by grief, told her that he couldn't live without Taki. Then he asked her to leave and never come back. Later that night, heavy rain poured over the city. The little girl, who was Taki reborn, walked through the storm toward the garden she and Keisuke once tended together. When she arrived, she saw that everything was ruined. The soil was dry, the plants were gone, and nothing was left to harvest. Her heart sank. That garden had been their dream, meant to grow fresh ingredients for the restaurant she and Keisuke had planned to open. Yet among the decay, she spotted one surviving chili plant. Seeing it reminded her of the happy days she once shared with him. Meanwhile, Mai was sitting in a small restaurant where her friend worked. She spoke with the owner about how hard life had been without her mother. The owner then handed her a box that had been left for her and her father. It was a gift from her mother, Taki, who had been reincarnated. Inside was a birthday cake for Mai's 20th birthday, decorated with a message marking each year of Taki's life, ending when she had died 10 years earlier, when Mai was 10. As Mai read the message, tears filled her eyes. In that moment, she finally believed the little girl was truly her mother, Taki, who had returned to them. Later that day, during lunch at the office, Keisuke received a small gift, a lunchbox that had been left for him. Maria sat nearby as he began to eat. The first bite brought back a flood of memories. The flavor was exactly like the dish Taki used to make for him when he worked late, something that always gave him comfort and strength. In that moment, Keisuke understood. The little girl was truly Taki reborn. Overwhelmed with emotion, he continued eating while tears of joy filled his eyes. Soon after, Keisuke went to the elementary school where Taki was studying. Mai was already there, having accepted that the girl was indeed her mother. Without hesitation, Keisuke called out Taki's name in front of all the students. The sight of her made him recall the happy years they had shared. He hugged her tightly, unable to hold back his tears. The students, thinking he was a stranger trying to kidnap her, panicked and called for help. Laughing at the chaos, Keisuke, Mai, and Taki ran away together, filled with happiness. Back home, Taki scolded Keisuke for letting the house become such a mess after her death. She reminded him that his behavior had affected Mai as well. But instead of feeling upset, Keisuke felt grateful. Being scolded by Taki again made him feel alive. Mai stepped in, saying it wasn't his fault, only proof of how much he still loved her mother. Later, Keisuke took Taki home on his bike, both smiling as they rode through the streets. When a police officer stopped them, they cheerfully said they were husband and wife, then continued their ride. As time passed, their lives began to brighten. Mai found the confidence to look for a job, and Keisuke's sadness disappeared. He worked with new energy and smiled often. Feeling happier than ever, Keisuke even jokingly proposed to Taki, now in her child form, promising to marry her when she turned 20. A relative who overheard was shocked, unable to understand why he would say such a thing to a little girl. One morning before work, Keisuke took a photo of Taki and set it as his phone wallpaper. At the office, his cheerful mood surprised everyone. Maria noticed how different he was, always smiling and humming while he worked. During lunch, she asked what had caused the change, but Keisuke had no way to explain that his late wife had returned as a child. When Maria spotted the photo of Taki on his phone, he grew nervous and awkward, unsure how to respond. Not long after, Taki was seen walking with a boy from her school. The boy confessed that he liked her and asked if she would be his girlfriend. When Keisuke saw them together, jealousy hit him before he could stop it. Later at a restaurant, Taki teased him about being jealous. Keisuke denied it, though he kept asking if she planned to accept the boy's feelings. Meanwhile, Maria met a friend for lunch and mentioned the picture she had seen on Keisuke's phone. When she asked about the girl, she said Keisuke had acted strange and refused to answer. Her friend laughed and said Keisuke was starting to sound a little weird. Later, while walking home alone, Taki noticed someone following her. It turned out to be her brother, Yuri. He had overheard Keisuke's proposal and wanted to find out what was going on. To clear things up, Taki and Yuri went to a restaurant to meet Mai. There, Mai tried to explain that the little girl was actually Taki, his sister, reborn in a new life. Yuri refused to believe such a thing. Curious, Taki asked why he had been following her, and Yuri admitted he had seen Keisuke proposing to her and wanted to know the truth. After hearing the story, Mai decided to support Keisuke's plan to marry Taki once she turned 18. Soon after, Keisuke arrived at the restaurant and tried to explain everything. Since Keisuke was known to be wealthy, Yuri saw an opportunity to take advantage of him and asked for money. Before Keisuke could respond, Taki pinched Yuri's arm, exactly the way she used to whenever he borrowed money from her. Shocked by the familiar gesture, Yuri began to believe the girl might truly be his sister. Feeling embarrassed, he quickly left them alone. At home, Taki's mother started to grow suspicious. Every morning, Taki packed her own lunch, even though the school provided free meals. When her mother asked why, Taki quickly gave a reasonable excuse, and her mother let it go. Later that day, Mai called Taki to talk about a matchmaking event her friends had invited her to. Mai didn't want to go because she lacked confidence. Taki encouraged her to attend, reminding her that good things often happened when least expected, just like how she and Keisuke had met years ago. The next morning, Taki went to Mai's house early to help her get ready. She helped pick out clothes and gave her a few words of encouragement before the event. Once Mai left for the bowling activity, Taki and Keisuke decided to spend time together for the first time in 10 years. They went on a quiet date, enjoying each other's company even though the situation looked odd to outsiders. While they were walking, Moriya and her friend happened to see them at a shopping area. They were both surprised to see Keisuke so close to a young girl and decided to follow them. Their curiosity grew, and they eventually approached to ask who the girl was. Nervous, Keisuke almost told the truth but stopped himself. Thinking quickly, Taki said Keisuke was her uncle and explained that she had asked him to accompany her because her parents were busy. Even with that explanation, Moriya and her friend still had doubts and continued to follow them to the cinema. Taki noticed and subtly reassured them through her calm behavior, easing their concerns. Later, Keisuke and Taki admitted to each other that their situation did seem unusual. To others, they looked more like a father and daughter than a couple. When the day ended, they waited outside for Mai. Nearby, they saw the boy who had once confessed to Taki playing soccer. Keisuke felt a brief pang of jealousy but brushed it off. As they watched, Taki asked about Moriya and why she seemed suspicious of her. Keisuke explained that Moriya was just a coworker he had lunch with, though Taki still felt a little uneasy. Not long after, Mai arrived looking disappointed. She told them the matchmaking event hadn't gone well, as the boy who approached her was rude and only wanted trouble. Seeing her upset, Taki tried to cheer her up and gave her a small gift they had bought earlier. The three of them ended the day by taking a picture together to remember the moment. Later that night, Taki went home alone. She didn't realize that Yuri was quietly following her. When she arrived, her mother was waiting and immediately scolded her for leaving without permission. The story then shifted to a memory from 10 years earlier, when Keisuke, Taki, and Mai took a family trip to see an orca show. Keisuke had been late, and they missed the main event, but they still got to see a playful beluga whale. Even though things didn't go as planned, the three of them laughed together and had a wonderful time. Returning to the present, Taki's mother was still upset. But as her anger faded, she realized that her reaction came from worry rather than frustration. She didn't want to lose Taki again. The next morning, before work, Keisuke waited for Taki to deliver the lunch she usually brought him. When she didn't show up, he began to worry. He checked his phone repeatedly throughout the day, hoping for a message. His coworkers noticed how distracted he was, watching him shift from anxious to cheerful and back again. Meanwhile, Mai had started her new job as a supervisor at a computer training company. She was teaching digital skills to employees, including the boss's son, Renji. At first, Renji resisted learning, but after some encouragement from his father, he reluctantly agreed to attend her lessons. Elsewhere, Keisuke was still restless because Taki hadn't replied to his message. Moriya stopped by his desk and offered him lunch, trying to cheer him up. Just then, Taki finally read his message, and Keisuke's face lit up with joy. Moriya noticed his excitement and smiled, finding his reaction endearing. Still uneasy, Keisuke called Taki to hear her voice. She explained that she hadn't prepared his lunch that morning because she had personal things to handle. She was also worried about her mother, who had started to notice her strange behavior each morning. While she was on the phone, the boy from her school appeared and thanked her for coming to his soccer game. He asked her to watch again the next day and said he thought they were already a couple. Later that afternoon, Mai was waiting at the bus stop when Renji appeared. Since the bus wouldn't arrive for another hour, he invited her to eat at a nearby street restaurant. The atmosphere was quiet and a little awkward at first, but Renji soon relaxed and thanked Mai for her effort in teaching him. Before they parted, he asked if he could call her whenever he needed help with his lessons. For the first time, Mai sensed a small spark of connection between them. The next day, after finishing his meal at a small restaurant, Yuri headed home. When he arrived, he was surprised to see Taki waiting outside his door. He wondered how she had found his address. As soon as they went inside, Taki began cleaning up his messy house while scolding him in a familiar way, just like his older sister used to do. The tone and gestures felt so similar that Yuri froze for a moment, reminded of his late sister. Still, he struggled to believe that this little girl could truly be her reborn. Curious and uneasy, Yuri asked why she kept visiting Keisuke and Mai. He assumed she was only seeking attention. He remembered following her home the previous day and hearing their mother yell at her. To him, it seemed like Taki was running away from her problems and trying to get attention from Keisuke's family instead. As Yuri continued to complain, Taki calmly gave him advice. She told him to stop whining and start improving himself. She reminded him that he had real talent for writing comics and stories, and encouraged him not to waste it. Her words felt firm but caring, exactly like how his sister used to talk to him. After Taki left, Yuri suddenly ran after her and asked her to scold him again. In that moment, he began to believe what he had been denying. The little girl truly felt like his sister reborn. Later that evening, Keisuke ate dinner alone at a restaurant, missing Taki's company. The owner noticed his gloomy mood and offered a few kind words that gave him an idea. Keisuke realized that the best way to bring Mai and Taki closer was through shared time together. He thought a family trip might help heal them all. The next morning, while on his way to work, Keisuke saw Taki on the street. She handed him his lunch, and he invited her to join him and Mai on a trip. Taki hesitated at first, but eventually agreed. That night, they spoke again by phone, and Keisuke suggested going on Sunday. When Taki asked her mother for permission, her mother mentioned something strange. She said Taki had once asked her to buy cotton candy and go on a trip together. Taki didn't remember ever saying that. The comment made her realize she had lost parts of her memory from her early years, pieces that belonged to her previous life. Soon after, Taki called Keisuke to apologize. She said she couldn't go because she had already promised her mother. But the next morning, when Taki got ready to leave, her mother seemed to forget about her and made other plans. Feeling hurt and left out, Taki decided to join Keisuke and Mai after all. The three of them visited the same place they had gone 10 years earlier. The beluga whales were still there, swimming gracefully as before. This time, Keisuke made sure to get tickets early so they wouldn't miss the orca show again. Watching the orcas leap through the water, the family felt a quiet sense of joy, as if time had finally come full circle. Later, while Keisuke was busy buying tickets, Mai and Taki sat together and talked. Mai asked whether Taki planned to accept Keisuke's proposal when she turned 18. Taki hesitated, unsure of her answer. After a moment, she excused herself to go to the bathroom, but she didn't return. As the minutes passed, Mai and Keisuke began to worry. Keisuke tried to call her, only to realize his phone was with Mai. He searched the entire park, calling out her name again and again, but she was nowhere to be found. Even at the whale show area, there was no sign of her. As panic grew, he shouted her name louder, desperate to find her. Taki! Then, out of nowhere, Taki appeared and walked toward them. Both Keisuke and Mai were flooded with relief, though their fear lingered. The thought of losing Taki again was unbearable. On the way home along the beach, Keisuke showed Taki a photo on her phone. It was a picture of her mother, Chika. He told her he wanted to meet Chika and explain everything, to let her know that Taki was his wife reborn and that they could finally live openly as a family. But Taki refused. She told him she wanted to handle her own family matters without his help. After that, they parted ways. Taki insisted on going home alone, and though she smiled, there was a trace of regret in her eyes. At home, Keisuke and Mai sat in silence. They felt the weight of reality. Having Taki back didn't mean life could return to how it was before. The Taki they knew now had her own life and family. Mai realized that no matter how much they wished for it, their family would never be the same again. The following day, while Taki was at school, Maria approached her and invited her to lunch at Keisuke's favorite restaurant. They talked casually as they ate, until Taki suddenly asked if Maria liked Keisuke. Surprised by the question, Maria admitted that she did. She said she admired his kindness and how comfortable she felt around him. Hearing this, Taki looked down, feeling a quiet sting of jealousy. Later that day, Taki visited Yuri's house. She seemed distant and sad. She thought about what Yuri had once said, that spending time with Keisuke and Mai might be her way of escaping her real life. The thought unsettled her. Taki asked Yuri what he thought of her when she was alive. He said that his sister had been strong and dependable, but that her strength sometimes made others weak. People around her had relied on her too much, forgetting how to stand on their own. His words stayed with her. As Taki listened, she began to wonder if returning to Keisuke and Mai had truly been the right choice. That evening, Taki went home feeling uncertain and conflicted. As she cleaned the house, she began to question whether coming back had been the right choice. She no longer knew where she truly belonged. In the middle of her thoughts, Keisuke called and asked her to visit his house, saying he had something to show her. When Taki arrived, she was surprised to see Keisuke and Mai waiting with a small birthday celebration. Keisuke had even made a cake shaped like a beluga whale, though it barely resembled one. Still, the effort made her smile. She was deeply touched that Keisuke had remembered her birthday after all these years. During the celebration, Keisuke told Taki that she didn't have to face everything alone anymore. He reminded her that she could rely on them too, just as they had relied on her before. Even though Taki was now a little girl again, both Keisuke and Mai wanted her to know that she was still part of their family. Hearing those words, Taki quietly began to cry. She realized how much she had been running away from her new life, feeling lost between her past and present. Yet, despite everything, Keisuke and Mai still accepted her and wanted to stay together as a family. The three of them ended up celebrating her birthday with laughter and warmth. Before the night ended, they made a promise that when Taki turned 18, she and Keisuke would marry again. Meanwhile, Yuri decided to return to his passion for writing comics and novels. As he sorted through old papers, he found a story about reincarnation written by a woman who claimed it was based on true events. The discovery made him stop and think about everything that had happened with Taki. Later, Keisuke and Mai decided to take Taki home. When they arrived, Taki's mother, Chika, spotted them from a distance. Alarmed, she rushed toward them, stopped a nearby taxi, and knocked on the window where Keisuke was sitting. She demanded that he get out.
どちら様?今うちの娘を乗せてきたようだけど。
Upset that a stranger had brought her daughter home, Keisuke tried to explain his intentions, but before he could say much, Taki quickly intervened. She made up an excuse to calm her mother down, stopping Keisuke before he revealed the truth about who she really was. Afterward, as they headed home, Mai commented that Taki's mother seemed strict. Keisuke reminded her not to judge someone too quickly and tried to stay optimistic. Still, a sense of worry lingered in his mind. He remembered that during their trip, Taki had told him not to get involved with her family, and now he finally understood why. The next morning, as Keisuke prepared for work, he received a message from Taki saying she wouldn't be able to make his lunch that day. Since he didn't bring anything from home, Maria noticed and offered him her own lunch. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if he would think her gesture was too forward, but eventually handed it to him. They ate together, chatting and laughing, and for a while, the atmosphere felt light and easy. During lunch, Maria mentioned that there would be a soccer game at Sakura Elementary, where Taki studied. She suggested that Keisuke go to support her. The idea made him smile. He decided to attend the game, both to cheer for Taki and to learn more about her life with her mother, Chika. At school, Taki's teacher distributed brochures for the upcoming soccer tournament and gave each student a ticket for their parents. Her classmates praised her, knowing she was one of the best athletes in class. As Taki packed up to leave, a student named Himari asked if she had finished her comic drawing assignment. Taki froze, confused. She had no memory of it. Since being reborn as a child, parts of her memory were still missing, and she often forgot simple things like this. After school, Taki went to the small restaurant where she usually met Keisuke. Wanting to finish her comic assignment, she asked the restaurant owner, staff, and even the customers to help her draw a cat. No one was able to do it well. Just then, Yuri arrived, having been called by Taki earlier. She asked him to help with the drawing, and he agreed. While they worked, Yuri shared something personal. He told Taki that he had once released a comic but cancelled it soon after, throwing away an important opportunity. He had wanted to show it to his sister, believing she would be proud, but before he could, the accident happened, and she was gone. After her death, he lost his motivation and drifted through life without purpose. Hearing his story, Taki understood how deeply her loss had affected him. Later that evening, Taki went home and tried to tell her mother about the soccer event that required a parent to attend. Chika, busy and distant as usual, didn't respond and walked away. Taki quietly placed the brochure and ticket on the table, hoping her mother would notice them later and decide to come. One day, Chika was at work dealing with several customer complaints. The stress from her job left her feeling drained and irritable. When she came home, she ignored Taki, who tried to start a conversation. As Taki was about to leave the room, Chika suddenly asked what kind of lunch she wanted for her school event the next day. It turned out that Chika had already read the school brochure that Taki had left on the table. Hearing this made Taki happy, knowing her mother had quietly paid attention after all. Meanwhile, Keisuke was in the kitchen learning to cook with Maria. He focused carefully, determined to prepare something Taki would enjoy. Although he struggled at first, he eventually managed to make a simple but delicious lunch. Excited, he decided to bring it to Taki's school to cheer her on at the event. When Keisuke and Mai arrived at the school, the event organizers stopped them at the gate since only parents with tickets were allowed to enter. Luckily, Takaru, the boy who liked Taki, appeared just in time. Because his father was part of the school's parent association, he was able to help them get inside by giving them extra tickets. Inside the school grounds, parents gathered around to watch their children compete. Taki, however, couldn't find her mother anywhere. While looking around, she accidentally ran into Keisuke and Mai. Seeing them made her nervous because she didn't want anyone, especially her mother, to get suspicious. She quietly asked them to keep their distance and not talk to her mom if they saw her. At the same time, Chika had prepared a lunch for Taki but received a phone call from her boyfriend just as she was about to leave for school. Instead of attending the event, she chose to meet him instead. The two spent a pleasant afternoon together, and Chika finally felt relaxed after many stressful days. During their meeting, Her boyfriend told her that he would soon be transferred to another city for work. Chika decided to move with him and planned to take Taki along. She had grown tired of her current environment and wanted to escape the constant gossip among the other parents at school. Back at the event, Keisuke and Mai sat in the stands watching Taki play. She joined several games, including basketball and ball throwing. When lunchtime came, the students gathered with their parents, but Taki was left alone. Her mother never arrived, and she hadn't brought any food with her. Feeling hungry and disappointed, she sat quietly by herself. A moment later, Keisuke walked up to her with the lunch he had made earlier. He told her that he had cooked it with help from Moria. Seeing the meal brought tears to Taki's eyes. She felt comforted knowing that Keisuke still cared for her. They sat together, sharing the lunch and recalling the good memories they once had, feeling grateful for the brief, peaceful moment together. The next day, Yuri tried to get his comic series published again after 10 years, but the publisher rejected him. They still held a grudge from the past. A decade earlier, Yuri had abandoned his first comic project after his sister, Taki, was in an accident. He never forgave himself for walking away and always blamed his own weakness for it. On his way home, Yuri accidentally bumped into a woman. To his surprise, she turned out to be the author of the reincarnation novel he had read earlier. They started talking and quickly found common ground through their shared love for comics and manga. Yuri told her he admired her novel and mentioned that in his own family, a little girl claimed to be the reincarnation of his late sister Taki. Although Yuri still doubted the idea of reincarnation, the woman's expression changed when she heard the story. She seemed intrigued, and for a brief moment, it looked as if she knew more than she wanted to admit. Meanwhile, Keisuke and Mai were at school watching Taki play basketball. She was quick, confident, and worked perfectly with Takeru, the boy on her team. Keisuke couldn't help feeling a bit jealous seeing how close they were, especially after hearing other students whisper that the two might be dating. The thought bothered him even after the game ended. As they walked home, Keisuke overheard a few mothers talking about Taki and her mother, Chika. They said that after Chika's divorce, which had happened because of domestic violence, she became overly strict with Taki. Some even mentioned seeing her scold Taki harshly at school. The gossip left Keisuke uneasy and deeply concerned. At the same time, Taki was with her classmate, Himari, who reminded her about their comic drawing assignment. When Himari asked if Taki had forgotten their time together, fragments of old memories began to return. Taki suddenly remembered small moments of playing with Himari in her previous life. But the memories were faint and incomplete. Himari grew upset, realizing that Taki no longer remembered her the way she used to, and walked away feeling hurt. Still bothered by the rumors, Keisuke decided to speak directly to Takeru. He asked if it was true that Chika treated Taki harshly. Takeru confirmed what he had heard, that Chika often yelled at her daughter, even in front of other parents. Hearing this made Keisuke even more worried about Taki's situation at home. The next day, Chika prepared to meet her boyfriend as planned. While walking, she overheard him talking on the phone. To her shock, she learned that he already had a wife and children. The job transfer he had mentioned was not a new beginning with her, but his return to his real family. Furious and hurt, Chika confronted him and threatened to expose the affair. He begged her not to tell his wife, pleading for her silence. Meanwhile, Keisuke couldn't stop thinking about the gossip and what Takeru had told him. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. Taki hadn't replied to his messages or answered his calls, which only deepened his worry. Unable to sit still any longer, he decided to go to her house and check on her himself. On the way there, he kept calling until Taki finally picked up. But as they talked, Chika appeared behind her. Realizing that Taki had a phone she didn't know about, Chika became furious. She yelled at Taki for lying and tried to take the phone from her. On the other end of the line, Keisuke heard the shouting and hurried to her house. When he arrived, Chika was about to hit Taki. Keisuke stepped in just in time to stop her. He raised his voice, telling Chika he wouldn't let her hurt Taki. His words, however, only made things worse. Chika misunderstood his intentions, thinking he was interfering in her personal life. Her anger grew, and in frustration, she told Taki to leave the house immediately. Afterward, Taki was furious with Keisuke. Back at his home, she shouted at him for speaking without thinking. She reminded him that Chika was still her mother and that she wanted to handle things herself. With nowhere else to go, Taki stayed at Keisuke and Mai's house for the night. Despite the tension earlier, the three of them relaxed before bed, laughing and playing games until late. Since there wasn't an extra room, they decided to sleep together in the living room. But while Mai and Taki slept soundly, Keisuke stayed awake, quietly watching over them. The next morning, Keisuke opened his eyes and saw an adult version of Taki cooking breakfast. For a brief moment, it felt like time had turned back. The sight filled him with nostalgia, reminding him of their life together 10 years ago. They ate breakfast as a family, something they hadn't done in years. Afterward, Taki left early to check on her mother before heading to school. Keisuke, still worried, thought it was finally time to tell Chika the truth, that Taki was not Shirase Marika, but the reincarnation of Najima Taki. Later that day, Keisuke had lunch with Moriya. They talked about the success of their product presentation and the progress they had made at work. Keisuke thanked her for teaching him how to cook for Taki, and in return, Moriya invited him to eat out at one of his favorite places. Their casual friendship started to feel warmer, and a small spark began to grow between them. Meanwhile, Mai was getting ready for work, happily eating the lunch Taki had prepared. As she was finishing, Rinji, the young man she had been teaching computer skills, called her. He said his computer had broken and asked if she wanted to meet the day after tomorrow to help him fix it. He also suggested they go shopping afterward. The invitation caught Mai off guard, but it made her smile. It felt like something new and promising was beginning to form between them. The next day, Keisuke met Taki as usual to pick up his lunch. During their meeting, Taki told him that she had decided to tell her mother the truth, that she was not Shirase Marika anymore, but the reincarnation of Najima Taki. Keisuke agreed that it was time to be honest with Chika and finally explain everything. That morning, while Chika was at work, she received a message from Taki saying she needed to talk about something important. Worried, Chika rushed home but found Taki asleep, her expression tense and uneasy, as if burdened by guilt. 2 days later, Taki and Chika met Keisuke to have the long-awaited conversation. Keisuke explained gently that Chika's daughter, Shirase Marika, was actually the reincarnation of his late wife, Najima Taki. He knew how unbelievable it sounded, so he described the small but unusual things Chika might have noticed, like how Marika always woke up early to make lunch, something no ordinary child her age would do. Despite his explanation, Chika refused to believe him. Instead, she grew angry and defensive, convinced that Keisuke was trying to confuse her and her daughter. Not long after, Taki tried to recall her life as Marika. She searched through photos and old memories but couldn't remember anything clearly. Everything felt distant and blurry, like a dream she couldn't reach. When Chika returned home that evening, Taki tried to talk to her, but Chika ignored her and spoke harshly, saying things no child should have to hear. In that moment, Taki stopped speaking as Marika and began speaking as Najima Taki. She apologized, admitting that she couldn't remember her life as Marika at all, not the happy moments, not the laughter, not even the smiles in the photos saved on Chika's phone. Hearing this, Chika froze. Her anger faded into shock and fear as she realized what Keisuke had meant about Marika's strange behavior. Memories of the past flooded back. Chika remembered how Marika used to smile shyly and avoid her gaze whenever she was upset. Back then, they had been happy. But after her divorce, Chika had changed. She had let her anger and exhaustion turn her into someone unrecognizable, someone who often took her frustrations out on her daughter. Later, Taki made omelet rice for Chika, just like she used to make for Keisuke long ago. The moment Chika tasted it, she felt something shift inside her. The flavor was unmistakable. It was the same taste Keisuke had described, the same taste Najima Taki once made. Suddenly, everything made sense. Overwhelmed, Chika rushed to Taki's school to find her. When she couldn't see her in class, she searched the nearby streets until she finally spotted Taki delivering lunch to Keisuke, just like always. Seeing the two together, Chika felt a mix of confusion and sadness. She asked who Taki truly was and where her real daughter, Shirase Marika, had gone. As Taki turned to her, Chika noticed something subtle but deeply painful. Marika no longer called her mama. Instead, she called her mom. In that single word, Chika realized how much had changed and how far her daughter had drifted away. Overwhelmed, Chika broke down and begged Keisuke to bring her daughter back. But neither Keisuke nor Taki understood how the reincarnation had happened. Still, Keisuke tried to comfort her, promising that he would do everything he could to help both her and Taki. Even if his plans sounded uncertain, he was determined to find a way for Marika's memories, or Marika herself, to return. Meanwhile, Yuri unexpectedly ran into Izumo and invited her to have a meal together. During their conversation, he mentioned again how he still couldn't believe that his sister Taki had been reincarnated into a young girl's body. Suddenly, Izumo collapsed without warning. Yuri panicked and called for an ambulance. As people gathered outside the restaurant, a strange man appeared among the crowd. When he passed a police officer, no one seemed to notice him at all. It soon became clear why. The man wasn't real. He existed inside Izumo's body, controlling her movements. The way he brushed through her hair was exactly how Izumo used to do it herself, confirming that something supernatural was happening. Later, Yuri stayed by Izumo's side at the hospital. When she finally woke up, she looked at him blankly. She didn't recognize him, and all her memories were gone. Days later, Chika began to slowly accept the truth that her daughter was the reincarnation of Najima Taki. She and Taki started cooking breakfast together each morning, trying to live more peacefully. Keisuke often visited them, cheerful as always, bringing food and greeting Chika playfully as his mother-in-law. Despite the strange circumstances, he still respected that Taki, in this life, was Chika's daughter. Both Keisuke and Taki often wondered why she had been reborn as Shirazi Marika and where Marika's true self might be now. They worked hard to find a way to recover Marika's memories, unsure what would happen if they succeeded. If Marika returned, would Taki disappear, or could both of them somehow coexist? At work, Keisuke and I finally launched a new product, which used one of Taki's recipes. The release was a success, and Maria praised the dish for its flavor and creativity. Keisuke happily shared the news with Taki, who smiled, proud that her recipe had made others happy. Still, she asked about Maria, knowing that Maria had feelings for him. With a calm tone, Taki told Keisuke that he shouldn't wait for her to grow up and gave her blessing for him to marry Maria if he wanted to. Not long after, trouble struck at work. Someone had registered their product's trademark online before the official launch, putting the company at risk. Since Maria was in charge of the launch event, the situation became her responsibility. Their boss scolded her harshly, and the whole project was in danger. To lift her spirits, Keisuke took her to their favorite restaurant for dinner. While they were eating, a customer suggested that Maria have her fortune read by the restaurant's owner, an elderly man named Kyotaro, who was known for his spiritual insight. After the reading, Maria seemed shaken and soon began to cry. Keisuke felt guilty for bringing her there, and even Kyotaro apologized for upsetting her. Later, Keisuke told Taki what had happened at the restaurant. Hearing how sad Maria was, Taki suggested organizing a barbecue to lift everyone's spirits. Keisuke agreed and began preparing everything for the next day, hoping it would help them all feel a little happier again. Before the barbecue, Keisuke asked Mai to invite her boyfriend, if she had one, and to bring Yuri along. The next morning, Taki also invited her mother, Chika. At first, Chika refused, but after some hesitation, she decided to come. When the party began, everyone seemed cheerful and relaxed except for Chika, who sat quietly by herself. Seeing her alone, Taki went over to keep her company, and Keisuke soon joined them. The three of them shared chocolate milk and grilled food while chatting. During their conversation, Keisuke asked about Chika's hometown. She said it was near the city but admitted she had no desire to return. She was still hurt and angry with her mother, who had spent years wasting money on gambling. As the evening went on, Chika decided to leave early. Taki walked her to the exit. At that moment, Maria arrived at the party, and Taki felt a small pang of jealousy as she watched her. While walking with her mother, Taki apologized for not remembering anything about her past life as Marika. Chika assured her it was not her fault and said she believed Marika had disappeared because of her own regrets and unfulfilled hopes after the divorce. Taki, moved by her mother's honesty, held her hand and promised to help her let go of the pain. Back at the barbecue, the mood stayed light and joyful. When the party ended, Maria's friend encouraged her to let Keisuke walk her home, knowing she liked him. Meanwhile, Mai went home with Rinji. On the way, she gathered the courage to ask if he had someone special. Rinji admitted that he did, someone living far away across the ocean. Hearing that left Mai quietly heartbroken. Later that night, Keisuke and Maria walked together. As they talked, Maria confessed her feelings for him. Before he could respond, she kissed him and quickly walked away. Shocked, Keisuke turned around and saw Taki standing at a distance, watching everything. His heart sank as he realized she had seen the kiss. At the same time, at the restaurant, Kyotaro was cleaning up after closing. One of his employees reminded him not to lie to customers about seeing spirits, saying it was wrong to give them false hope. But Kyotaro was not lying. He truly could see and communicate with spirits. Earlier, he had given Maria a message from her late brother, which was why she had cried during the fortune reading. Then something strange happened. As Kyotaro was putting things away, a faint figure appeared in the restaurant. It slowly walked through the wall and into the room. To his surprise, it was Taki, or rather, the spirit of Shirazi Marika, finally revealing herself as a presence separate from the living Taki. The next morning, Keisuke ran into Maria on his way to work. Both of them felt uneasy after what had happened the night before. Maria quietly told him that her feelings were genuine and asked him to think about what she had said. Keisuke felt conflicted, caught between his lingering love for Taki and the growing closeness he shared with Maria. Elsewhere, Mai and Yuri met at the restaurant, both lost in thought. Mai was disheartened after learning that Rinji already had someone special living far away. Yuri was also uneasy because he needed to visit his mother, who lived alone, yet he wasn't sure whether to invite Keisuke to join him. Eventually, they all decided to visit Yuri's mother together. Taki hesitated at first, uncertain about visiting her own mother while still living in a young girl's body. When Chika overheard, she gently encouraged Taki to go, reminding her that it had been 10 years since her passing and this was a rare chance to see her again. A few days later, they traveled to Taki's hometown. The trip was emotional for her. It had been 15 years since she last saw her mother, and even at her own funeral, her mother hadn't attended. The thought weighed heavily on her. When they arrived, they were welcomed by Taki's cousin, Moiko, who led them to her mother's house. After a while, Taki's mother appeared in a wheelchair. She looked frail and confused, mistaking Moiko for her daughter. Seeing this broke Taki's heart. Mai and Keisuke greeted her kindly, but the sight of her weakened state made Taki emotional. During lunch, tension rose in the family. Yuri's aunt told him he should stay in the village to care for his mother, but Yuri refused. He wanted to continue pursuing his dream of becoming a comic artist and didn't want to give up his life in the city. The disagreement escalated until Keisuke stepped in to calm things down, but in frustration, Yuri accidentally pushed him, causing Keisuke to fall. Later, Taki found Yuri sitting alone outside, looking upset. She approached him and offered a few gentle words. Without realizing it, Yuri started opening up about his frustrations. Their conversation grew heated, resembling an argument between siblings. Through that exchange, Yuri suddenly recognized the familiar way she spoke to him. He finally accepted that the little girl really was his sister, Najima Taki, reborn. Feeling more at peace, Yuri returned to the house and joined everyone at the dining table. He promised that he would take care of their mother while continuing to follow his dream as a comic artist. He wanted to make their family proud, including his sister. As their visit came to an end, Taki thanked Moiko for taking care of their mother all these years. While playing with Moiko's child, she accidentally threw a ball that rolled near her mother, who was sitting quietly behind the house. When Taki went to pick it up, her mother looked at her closely. For a brief moment, her eyes softened with recognition, as if she understood that the little girl before her was Najima Taki. A faint, peaceful smile appeared on her face. After saying their goodbyes, they headed back home. Later, at the train station, Mai decided to stop by the dock to see Renji. She remembered Taki's advice about love and wanted to clear her feelings once and for all. When she arrived, Renji greeted her warmly and explained that the person he once mentioned, the one he loved overseas, had actually been a childhood friend who died in a sea accident. Hearing this, Mai finally understood he hadn't rejected her. They shared a quiet moment by the dock and confessed their feelings for each other. Meanwhile, Keisuke went to meet Moria. However, instead of returning her feelings, he gently told her that he couldn't accept her love because he still loved his late wife, Taki. Moria listened quietly and accepted his decision with understanding and grace. That night, the city celebrated New Year's Eve. Everyone gathered at the temple to pray for lasting happiness. As they stood under the glowing lanterns, Kyotaro appeared and told Keisuke not to wish for too much, reminding him to cherish the moments they already had. No one fully understood his words, but they all smiled and joined the crowd in counting down to the new year. As the clock struck midnight, Taki suddenly collapsed. When she regained consciousness, she seemed confused and didn't recognize Keisuke. It was as if her spirit had left Marika's body. Moments later, she fainted again, and they brought her to Kyotaro's restaurant to rest. To everyone's astonishment, Taki's spirit appeared beside them, separate from Marika's body. Keisuke, Mai, and Chika waited anxiously for her to wake up again. When she finally opened her eyes, she was back inside Marika's body. Keisuke and Mai were relieved, believing that everything had returned to normal. But Chika couldn't hide her disappointment. She had hoped that her real daughter Marika would come back instead. Later, Keisuke told Yuri about what had happened. Since Yuri already knew about Taki's reincarnation, he thought of something familiar. He remembered when Izumo, the author who had written about reincarnation, once fainted and later woke up with no memory of him. Believing that Izumo might understand what was happening, Yuri tried to contact her, but she didn't answer. Curious, Keisuke began reading Izumo's novel. While he was reading, Moria came to talk to him, trying to lighten the mood after their earlier conversation. She noticed the book in his hand and mentioned that the final part of Izumo's series on reincarnation was being released next week. Hearing this, Keisuke decided it might be the right time to meet Izumo in person. He worried that Taki could disappear again, just like on New Year's Eve, and wanted answers. At first, Taki was hesitant to go, thinking everyone was worrying too much. But eventually, she agreed to come along. A few days later, they attended the release event for Izumo's new book. The venue was crowded with fans waiting to get their copies signed. Keisuke and Yuri waited in line along with the others. When it was finally Keisuke's turn to approach Izumo and ask about reincarnation, the security guard suddenly removed him from the line and escorted him out of the event. Yuri tried to speak with Izumo next, hoping she would recognize him, but she stayed silent. The guards quickly escorted him out as well. While standing outside, confused and frustrated, Mai noticed something written inside Yuri's copy of the book, a short note from Izumo asking them to meet her at a cafe downstairs. That was when they realized Izumo still remembered Yuri and wanted to talk privately. At the cafe, Yuri explained everything to Izumo, telling her about his sister who had come back to life inside the little girl sitting beside him. He didn't expect her to believe him, but to everyone's surprise, Izumo said she did. She then revealed that she was the reincarnation of a man named Yoshihara Koji, shocking everyone at the table. Koji then shared his own understanding of what had happened to them. He said they were not truly reincarnated. Instead, their spirits had entered and temporarily borrowed another person's body. He described it as borrowing a vessel, rather than being reborn. Koji asked Taki if she remembered the first moment she entered the little girl's body. He recalled his own experience clearly. Years ago, he met Izumo at a bookstore. At that time, she had been devastated after a car accident that left her with a serious leg injury. Her dream of joining the basketball team was gone, and she had lost the will to live. Koji explained that in that moment of despair, their energies connected. Izumo wanted to disappear, while he wanted to live again. That was how his spirit entered her body. Koji said he could see flashes of the memories of the person whose body he had borrowed, the same way Taki could see pieces of Marika's memories. But he warned her that the body would eventually need to be returned to its rightful owner. Even if the original person's will to live was faint, it still existed, and one day that will would take control again. Hearing this made Taki deeply anxious. If Koji was right, it meant she would eventually have to leave Marika's body, and when that happened, she might disappear completely. Not long after, Taki visited Chika at work. While they were talking, Chika suddenly fainted. She had been pushing herself too hard and worrying constantly about Marika. Ever since New Year's Eve, when Marika briefly awoke and pulled away in fear, Chika had been uneasy. At the same time, Keisuke and Mai were struggling with what Koji had said. They worried that Taki's time was running out. One evening, Keisuke went to Kyotaro's restaurant to clear his mind. During their talk, Kyotaro calmly told Keisuke that he already knew about his wife's spirit living in Marika's body. Keisuke refused to accept the idea that Taki was only borrowing the body, but Kyotaro explained that he needed to prepare himself. One day, the body would have to return to Marika, and Keisuke would need to let go when that moment came. Later, Taki met Maria at the restaurant and asked her honestly about her feelings for Keisuke. Maria admitted that she still loved him, even though he had turned her down. She said she couldn't deny how much she cared and still wanted to be with him. Taki, though she felt a sting of jealousy, encouraged Maria to keep following her heart. Deep down, Taki knew her time in Marika's body was limited. She wanted Keisuke to find happiness, even if it meant being with someone else once she was gone. That evening, everyone gathered as Taki said she had something important to share. She had finally remembered everything about the moment she entered Marika's body. Before that, she had quietly visited Keisuke and Mai, watching from a distance to make sure they were doing well. One night, she met Marika in the park. Marika had been deeply sad and had wished to disappear. When Taki tried to comfort her, their energies connected. Marika wanted to vanish, while Taki's heart longed to return to Keisuke. That collision caused Taki's spirit to enter Marika's body. Now, with her memories back, Taki understood that she had never truly been reincarnated. She realized that she had to return Marika's body, even though the thought of leaving again broke her heart. Keisuke and Mai, however, couldn't accept it. They begged her not to go, afraid of losing her once more. Taki felt torn between love and guilt. She believed that returning had only brought more pain to everyone. With tears in her eyes, she apologized to Mai, Yuri, and Keisuke for not being able to keep her promise. She asked Keisuke to stay strong and move forward without her. Then, quietly, she disappeared. When Taki's spirit left Marika's body, Marika slowly opened her eyes. At that moment, Chika realized how much she had hurt her daughter. Regret filled her heart as she apologized for neglecting Marika and for all the sadness she had caused. Afterward, Keisuke and Mai's lives sank back into loneliness. At work, Keisuke moved through the days without energy or focus. Even though Taki was gone, her spirit stayed close, watching over him and Mai from afar. Yet, he could not feel her presence. When a co-worker insulted Maria, Keisuke said nothing. He simply sat there, numb and empty. Mai struggled as well, ignoring Renji when he tried to talk to her, unable to accept that Taki was truly gone. One afternoon, Yuri met Izumo at Kyotaro's restaurant. He told her everything, that Koji's spirit had once taken over her body and that Taki had lived inside Marika's. Izumo didn't respond with anger. Instead, she felt sympathy for both Koji and Taki. She wondered if either of them had found the peace they were searching for after borrowing another person's life. Later that evening, Taki appeared at Kyotaro's restaurant. She complained to him playfully, since he was the only one who could see her now. Not long after, Keisuke arrived. He had been coming every day, hoping that somehow, he might see Taki again in her little girl form. The next day, Keisuke and Maria went out to find new locations for promoting their company's product. While walking through the park, Keisuke saw Marika playing happily with Chika. His chest tightened. Unable to face the reminder of Taki, he quietly turned away and walked off. Maria, puzzled by his reaction, approached Marika. To her surprise, Marika didn't recognize her at all, even though they had met and spoken several times before. That evening, Rinji stopped by Keisuke's house to check on Mai. He was worried since she hadn't replied to any of his messages. When he tried to talk to her, Mai told him to leave and not to worry about her anymore. Keisuke tried to remind his daughter that Rinji cared and that she needed to accept Taki's absence, but Mai refused to listen. Losing Taki for the second time had crushed her spirit. She no longer saw a reason to keep living, and Keisuke felt helpless watching her fall deeper into sadness. Later that night, Keisuke sat quietly, remembering Taki's last words to him, her wish for him to keep living and to be a good father to Mai. He realized that grieving forever would not bring her back. With that thought, he decided to move forward and take care of the family she had left behind. The next morning, Keisuke woke up early and made breakfast for Mai before heading to work. At the office, his co-workers noticed a change in him. He no longer looked empty or defeated. During lunch, he approached Yuta, a colleague who had once been rude to Maria. Keisuke invited him to talk, and after their conversation, Yuta apologized to Maria and even offered to help with her projects. For the first time in a while, Keisuke felt a sense of progress. Meanwhile, Taki continued to visit Kyotaro's restaurant to talk with him. That day, Yuri was there too, bringing his comic draft to show the editor. He wanted to make Taki proud. Kyotaro glanced at the comic, but his real intention was to let Taki see Yuri's work. When Yoshihara Koji also appeared at the restaurant, he praised Yuri for chasing his dream. Watching her brother's effort, Taki felt proud and finally said goodbye to both Yuri and Kyotaro before leaving quietly. Elsewhere, Marika began to realize what had truly happened to her. She drew a picture of Taki, the woman she always saw in her dreams. When Chika saw it, she gently explained that those dreams were not dreams at all. Taki's spirit had once lived inside her, and Marika had been drawing the face of the person who had shared her body. Back at home, Keisuke noticed that the breakfast he made for Mai was still untouched. His worry grew heavier. Wanting to comfort her, he prepared one of Taki's favorite dishes, hoping it would remind Mai of the warmth their family once had. But when everything was ready, Mai still refused to eat. She locked herself in her room, drowning in her grief. Keisuke sat outside her door and spoke softly. He reminded Mai of how blessed they had been to see Taki again, even for a short time. He told her that Taki would want them to smile, to live happily, and to keep moving forward so her spirit could finally rest in peace. After a long conversation, Mai slowly began to understand. For the first time in days, she came downstairs. Together, she and Keisuke ate the food he had made and shared memories of the happy moments they had spent with Taki. As Taki prepared to leave this world for good, Marika suddenly appeared and called out to her. She wanted to give Taki one last chance to say goodbye properly. The last time Taki had left Marika's body, she hadn't been able to say farewell, and it had left an ache in her heart. This time, Marika granted her that final moment. With gratitude, Taki thanked Marika and returned once more in her little girl form. For one last time, she stood before Keisuke and Mai, smiling gently as they felt her presence and the peace that came with it. Early the next morning, Taki returned to Keisuke and Mai's home. Keisuke was in the kitchen cooking when he heard someone at the door. To his surprise, it was Taki standing there, smiling warmly. Both he and Mai rushed to hug her, overwhelmed with joy and emotion. Taki was finally back, even if only for a short time. Although Mai was happy to see her mother again, she couldn't help but feel a little sad. She knew this reunion would last only one day. Taki reminded them to spend the day doing whatever made them happy, to enjoy every moment together without any regrets before she had to leave again. Since it happened to be Keisuke and Taki's wedding anniversary, they decided to go shopping as a family to celebrate. Taki spent the day buying clothes and jewelry for Mai, wanting to spoil her one last time. The outing was filled with laughter, though Keisuke felt a little uneasy about the bill at the end of the day. When they returned home, Mai and Keisuke came up with an idea. They realized that Taki had always put them first and wanted to do something for her in return. They asked Taki to make any request she wanted. Taki's first wish was for Mai to meet Renji and apologize for avoiding him. She knew that Mai's sadness had caused her to push him away. After Mai apologized, Taki suggested they play a pretend wedding game to lighten the mood. But Renji surprised everyone by saying he was serious about wanting to marry Mai. Taki was speechless but secretly happy that her daughter had found someone who truly cared about her. Later, Taki asked Keisuke to reconsider Moriya's proposal. She knew Moriya genuinely loved him and believed he deserved another chance at happiness. Keisuke hesitated, insisting he was too old for her. Yet, later that evening, he decided to call Moriya for help with something special. He confessed the truth about Taki's return and explained that she was living in Marika's body. Moriya was stunned but believed him, remembering how Marika hadn't recognized her during their last meeting. A few days later, Taki and Mai came home to find a surprise waiting for them. Keisuke had transformed part of their house into a small restaurant, something Taki had always dreamed of. He had asked Moriya for help to make it happen. Seeing her dream finally come true brought tears to Taki's eyes. Soon, guests began arriving for the restaurant's opening. Kyotaro, Moriya, and Keisuke's co-workers were all there to celebrate. The only one missing was Yuri, who was busy finishing his comic for its upcoming release. When everyone was seated, Taki stepped into the kitchen and began cooking. The aroma filled the house, and everyone was amazed by her skill. Moriya, who had still been unsure about Keisuke's story, finally believed it after seeing the family photos displayed around the room. The pictures showed Marika's body but Taki's familiar warmth in every smile. As the night went on, laughter filled the restaurant. Taki watched Keisuke and Moriya talk and laugh together and felt a calm happiness in her heart. She was grateful to see Keisuke living again, free from sorrow. Surrounded by love and joy, she knew she could finally say goodbye without regret. As time passed, the evening came to a gentle close. One by one, the guests thanked Taki for the wonderful meal and left with warm smiles. Before Moriya went home, Taki stopped her for a moment. She had come to fully trust Moriya's feelings for Keisuke and asked her to take care of him once she was gone. Keisuke's surprise for Taki had gone perfectly, and the joy of seeing her dream come true gave her a sense of peace. For the first time, she felt ready to leave without regret. Yet, one small thought lingered in her heart. She remembered the old garden that had once been her pride and joy, now overgrown and forgotten after 10 years of neglect. Taki asked Keisuke if he could fix it for her after she was gone. Instead, Keisuke suggested they do it together while she still had time. Not long after, Keisuke, Mai, and Taki went to the garden, with Renji helping them get there. When they arrived, Taki looked around quietly, remembering how full of life the place had once been. Before they began working, she turned to Mai and Keisuke to thank them for being her family. She told them that she had been truly happy, even after returning in another form, because of the love they had continued to give her. Together, they worked side by side, clearing weeds, planting new flowers, and restoring the garden to its old beauty. The air was calm, and the night sky seemed to glow faintly above them. When the last seed was planted, Taki suddenly felt weak and collapsed into Keisuke's arms. They both understood that her time had come. As her body began to fade, Keisuke and Mai thanked her for coming back into their lives and for being such a loving wife and mother. Moments later, Taki's presence disappeared completely. The garden was still, but the air felt warm, as if she had left a part of herself behind. After her final farewell, Keisuke slowly learned to live with peace in his heart. The pain of losing Taki no longer weighed him down. He and Mai found comfort in remembering her with smiles instead of tears. Keisuke became close friends with Moriya, who continued to support him, while Mai found happiness with Renji. Yuri fulfilled his dream of becoming a professional comic artist, and life began to move forward again. With everyone finding their own happiness, and Taki finally at peace, the story came to a gentle and heartfelt end. So the moral of the story is, second chances taste better with home cooking, communicate before you combust, label your spare key, and always buy show tickets early.